Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. 4%.
And I was going to say, George, I have a quick question for you. What's the WPI?
I don't even know what WPI is. It's wage price
something
index?
Inflation? No, like wage against inflation. I thought that was the ratio that they were talking about, but yeah, and see, that's funny. I do love the little irony here that we were coming in to talk about this thing and we have not Googled it.
Wage price index indicates the price of labor. So bingo. I guess it's sort of the strength of people's pay increases versus inflation, I guess.
And what is it?
Who gives a fuck?
Jesus, I actually can't find the live one. I can see a definition of what it is.
It's irrelevant because it's just talking about, look, but what we're talking about here
2.3%. There we go. There's your answer. That satisfies it.
Oh, thank God.
Not enough.
Fuck. Oh, God. All the problems have been solved. Someone knows the WPI. Oh, God. All of our problems have gone away. Thank Christ.
George is furiously masturbating to is a reference to a little incident at the National Press Club, was it?
Yes, the Adam Bandt incident.
Adam Bandt.
Yep.
So, also, by the way, Adam Bandt incident, excellent name for a band.
Yeah, great. This week, we're talking about the election, if you hadn't already worked that out. And
it's only been 1 week.
There's only been 1 week. And this week has all been about gaffes. Do you love a gaff? We love gaffes. And gotcha moments. And who loves a good gotcha moment? Because we all need to know the price of the loaf of bread. Otherwise, the world will implode. How
much is the bread? How much? Hey, if you're going to be a politician, how much is bread, you cunt?
I mean, I'd argue the bread thing's a bit different, but let's come back to that later on.
What's
Adam,
petrol
let's
worth,
start from the top. Let's start from the top. Because gaff number 1 of the election happened on day 1. Like this, we couldn't even get a few days in before there was something that became the bullshit issue of this election. It was day 1.
Anthony Albanese took us from the top and led with distinction in that someone asked him at a press conference what the unemployment rate was, to which his response was, the unemployment rate is
5.4.
Yeah, like set a number, but wasn't sure about it, and it happens. We didn't know the WPI until I just looked it up then, even though I was planning to talk about the fact that people don't know the WPI and whether or not that's important. I should have looked it up.
I just hate that, like a politician knowing a fucking number, that it's their job. It doesn't improve the situation for people's lives either way. Like, Anthony Albanese studied an economics degree. He's been in public service for like 27 years or something like that. I trust him to do the right thing when it comes to workers and the economy. And like, tripping someone up on some basic fact-checking exercise doesn't prove anything one way or another about their ability to be good in the role. Like, I thought it was funny when Scott Morrison didn't know the price of bread, but like, it makes me think of him as no more inept than I currently do. If that makes sense.
The bread thing way back when, I feel, was more a point of when you can't, they're trying to show how in touch with people they are when something like, what does bread cost? I wasn't expecting, a Coles, Coles prices on Wonder White, or first one's free Wonder White, or any of that sort of stuff, is exactly this dollar and cent. But you'd be like, I guess depending where you go, like there's some, you can get a baguette for like $5 at a fancy bakery, or like white bread for $2 somewhere, like couple of bucks. Like, I don't need the exact minute crazy detail, but what came out of the Scott Morrison thing was I don't do any of the shopping. I don't know what milk costs. It's like, oh boy. If you just said, I don't know, $1 a litre, somewhere it is, and that would have been fine. But he admitted something completely different. But in the Albo sense, you're absolutely right. You could trust him to actually work on the legislation of this sort of stuff because he wasn't writing or enacting the legislation in that moment in that press conference.
Right.
When you need to know what the percentages are and how that affects whatever, you're probably in your office. He's not doing it. Some staffer is.
That's what the nerds are for.
They're drafting their policy and they can check it and then apply the maths.
Why do we have all these political staffers that we pay fucking nothing to that have got all these advanced degrees in political science and economics? What the fuck do we have the nerds for? This is why we have them.
So I think Scott Morrison was the next one off the list, and I can't actually even remember what he said because it was that irrelevant.
He kept calling, like it was I think it was a citizen or a journalist that asked him a question. And he kept calling him Mr. Speaker, like he was in Parliament.
Yeah, he kept like using like
so stupid,
like question time sort of
language
to be like, no, as we always see in question time when like, people start arcing up while like say the current person speaking is there. They usually go, Mr. Speaker, like I'm directing this at you. I'm not talking to them and da-da-da-da-da. And and it just made me think of like, oh man, and we could just riggedy wreck you for this, like picking apart at all this sort of stuff. Isn't it fun, ScoMo? Isn't it fun when, let's pick apart you calling someone Mr. Speaker all the time? Like, to err is human-esque gaff. See? And I just did it then. I guess I should resign. I should resign from the podcast.
ScoMo was talking about the price of, or the amount you get from Newstart, or from the JobSeeker. Sorry.
Like the unemployment wage.
So you're paying $46 a week. I think it's meant to be $46 a day anyway. And he's like, "I just misspoke," which is probably fair enough.
Yeah, which is probably fair enough.
Adam Bandt probably had the best, because a lot of journalists sort of cottoned on to what was happening with the whole Albanese thing, and then so they decided to throw one in to Adam Bandt, who wasn't taking the shit lightly.
No. So yes, he was speaking at the National Press Club, and I believe what's his name, Ron Mason.
Some journalist from the Australian Financial Review with a smug fucking expression on his face, being like, "Oh, watch out, lads! Bobby's about to get a fucking gotcha question." Anyway, so let's hear Adam Bandt take a big hot steamy dump on the Fin Review.
Just very quickly, talking of abject fact-checking exercises, you said in the speech that wages growth wasn't going particularly well. What's the current WPI?
Google it, mate. I mean, like, I am sick. If you want to know why people are turning off politics, it's because what happens when you have an election that increasingly becomes this basic fact-checking exercise between a government that deserves to be turfed out and an opposition that's got no vision. This is what happens. Like, elections should be about a contest of ideas. Politics should be about reaching for the stars and offering a better society. And instead, there's these questions that are asked about, can you tell us this particular stat or can you tell us that particular stat? And those questions are designed to show that politicians are somehow out of touch and not representative of everyday people. Well, newsflash, most of the people in Canberra are on six-figure salaries just passing time until they go out and work for their coal and gas corporations and get a 6 or 7-figure lobbying job. Do you know what would be a better way of showing? That politicians are in touch with the need of everyday peoples? It would be passing laws that lift the minimum wage. It would be making dental and mental into Medicare. It would be making sure that we wipe student debt and build affordable houses. And when you've got wages growing at about 2% and a bit and inflation growing at about 3.5%, that is part of the problem. And I would hope that at this election, we can lift the standard and turn it into a genuine contest of ideas.
Your profit tax. So I'll take that as a no, but on the profits tax question?
Well, I answered your question about the wages. On the profits, when you have big corporations with turnover over $100 million and they're making excessive profits, which we define as being allowing 5% to be an acceptable profit level, and we're saying take 5%, add it to the long-term bond rate, which is currently around about 1 or 2%. On those excessive profits above that, you tax their profits at 40%. Again, it's in our policy. Just go and Google it and have a look at it.
I rarely find speeches from politicians like inspiring, like they're meant to be, right? We always talk about like, but I just don't feel inspired by this person, or we're supposed to be like uplifted and feel hopeful and great, like when we hear like people running for leadership to speak. That's one of the rare times where I was like, I just feel great about everything being said in this speech. I feel really inspired by that speech.
I was like, yes, King, fucking slay them.
Yeah. Because not only I love the points, he had the stats.
Yeah.
He just dropped him at the end.
I liked I don't know what the journalist's name was, but him just like glancing at Laura Tingle, who's the host, just being like, is he allowed to do that?
Daddy,
and Laura Tingle is just
Laura
like,
Tingle just gives
you walked into this.
I just like it's so like I hate the way he like. It's just this smug fucking expression on this fucking journalist's face. And then Adam starts answering the question in the way that he's going to answer the question. And the journalist is like, no, wait. I'm losing my gotcha. I got to come here. I got to get this back. I got to get my gotcha back.
Yeah. That's
he's like trying to talk over him, like trying to get he's like, oh fuck, I've lost the crowd on this. I need to get him back. Yeah. I'm just going to yell over the person I'm asking the question to. That's fucking journalism. That guy's got a fucking master's degree. He studied hard for that.
Oh yeah, that's what we call pulling the Ted Cruz.
Fucking nerd.
To be clear, I do think that politicians should have groundings in the facts, like to be able to say that they shouldn't be able to, they shouldn't be able to waffle on necessarily, but whether or not they get the 0.5 percentage point right on the answer to a question,
irrelevant.
I don't
care.
Exactly.
The thing is, though, the reason why this is a thing is that I'm pretty sure it's now. I could be wrong here, but I think it started with Malcolm Fraser when he wasn't able to answer a similar question to this, and it contributed towards him losing the election way back when. The thing is, you can even see, and this is what some journalists are saying today, is that the polling is showing that Labor is sliding compared to the coalition, and they're attributing it because of this particular, the Albanese gap, for instance.
It's all optics.
That could be a whole number of things.
I think it's like we've gone into proper campaign season, and now the Liberals are allowed to run a swathe of negative ads against Labor, and that's what they're doing. And things naturally tighten as you move towards an election. Like, I don't think, it wasn't good. It was a bad look. But I also think the media bigging it up and making it the story of the century that someone forgot a fucking number is like when there's plenty of corrupt, awful, fucked things that the current government who's in charge are currently doing that we're not talking about. If anything, it's evidence of like the LNP's complete capture of our media environment through the Murdoch press, right? Like, it's just complete, and they will see and they will jump on anything. Now, yes, if I was a politician, I would wake up every day to an alarm which would tell me what the unemployment rate is and the price of petrol and the price of bread. It'd be like my, Echo, morning routine is like, tell me the price of fucking bread. But that's besides the point. But
I think the point of that would be to more just inform you as to what they are, not to whether or not you'd be able to recount the exact number later. Because as Adam Bandt sort of said in that, the important aspect is that he knows that inflation is higher than wage growth. He knows that fact. Doesn't matter by how much in that sort of sense of like whether it's like 2 to 3% or 2 to 5% or whatever. He just knows that those two things are true. And then they work on that. It's the same with arguments around climate change. Like the amount of people I've spoken to where like when you're talking about climate science and they're like, oh no, but like how many parts per million or what's the source on that? Or like what study said that? I'm like, I don't remember, but I just know that climate change is real. We got to come with the same set of facts here, like not exactly specific numbers, but accepting like a general truth.
What's his name? Avi Yemeni does that a lot with his sort of gotcha videos at left-wing climate protests.
I find that completely unsurprising. It goes to show the complete dearth of talent in our media landscape. It's like, okay, you've got the leader of the Greens. Like, maybe you don't think that they're like economically, able to handle, they're not the shrewd economic managers like the LNP building their car parks and their sports rorts. But, the question that you have for Adam Bandt, you got the leader of the Greens here in front of you. You can ask him any question you want in the world. And the question you ask is like something easily Googleable. It's like, don't you okay, this policy, how are you going to cost that? How's that going to work? Like, there's so many deep policy questions that we could get to that would still, I feel like would still give you the same fucking gotcha thing that you were after, but they'd be actually substantial in that they're talking about policy and differences of ideas and how you're going to do this. I think like the best journalism this week has been around interrogating Labor's policy around 24/7 nurses. They'd be like, okay, how are you going to do this? And you might have Jim Chalmers or whoever it is kind of like tap dancing on the head of a pin trying to like talk about, how we definitely need more nurses. And like, okay, yes, but how? Where's the money going to come from? Where's it costed? Like, that's good journalism. And I don't know why.
Because you can't just train people and have them there overnight.
Sure, it is a real problem. And it's like, how are you going? Sure, you can promise we're going to have nurses 24/7 in every nursing home, but like, how are you actually going to deliver that? That's something that requires discussion, and you should have ready answers to those questions. But like, it is interesting that all of that good questioning happens to Labor and nobody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when Scott Morrison announced the AUKUS, $100 billion submarine program, no one said, now, Scottrick, where do you think that money's going to come from? Who's going to pay for that, Scott? When they ordered $35 billion in tanks, they don't go, oh, yes, that's very good, but how are you going to actually deliver on those tanks? Where are those tanks going to be warehoused? Is this worth it, considering that the next war is not likely to be a land war? It's likely to be, air or sea or something like that. It's like, these would have all been valuable questions, but they don't seem to get levied at the LNP for whatever reason. They can spend money with reckless abandon. But Labor, announces a costed policy, and all of a sudden there's like the correct level of scrutiny. It's just like completely fucking unbalanced. Thank you.
Silent.
Yeah. No, it's something that'll be interesting to watch over the next couple of weeks as we head towards May 21. On our rundown, the next thing that we were going to talk about, I think, was our old friend George Christensen.
Yes, zombie candidate George Christensen, prior to this, announced that he was going to be retiring from politics, that he would not be coming back, and we all
spend more time with his family.
Yes.
Just bear in mind, spend more time with his family was the reasoning. So, and that'll be relevant in the next 5 seconds when George finishes the thought.
The member for Manila will be, I guess, presumably returning to Manila full time to be with his one of his families, and no, that's a joke. He's only got one family that I'm aware of, or that he's aware of, I suppose. So he was set to retire, and that's coming up. But there is this fun loophole which says if you're running as a senator, and you've got a seat, and you run for another seat, and you lose that seat, there is a $100,000 relocation bonus that's paid out to you. So if you're just a guy who's a senator who's serving out their term, you retire, they go, thanks very much, good luck. And you get nothing.
Good day, here's your pension or whatever. Whatever.
If you lose, then you get a $100K relocation payout. So it seems like Christensen.
You get 6 months' salary.
Which equates to...
Which in his case equates to $105,000. So it could be different depending on the person. But it's like, oh, cool. So this little tactic is just, I might just get $100K. Thank you very much. Because from my understanding as well, where he's situated himself, so he won't be running on a Liberal Nationals Party ticket. He's siding with everyone's favourite Mdaya, Pauline Hanson. Pauline Hanson's One Nation, and running third on the ticket. And as I understand it, from people like Anthony Green, the election analysts and all that sort of stuff, being third on the ticket is essentially unwinnable.
Meaningless.
Because anyone who is voting for your party to represent them in the Senate, because that's all to the individual based rather than your specific seat and all that sort of stuff, where there's only one person from each party running in your seat. In this instance, you can have I don't know if it's up to 3, but it's up to 3. Yeah, up to 3 people.
Sometimes people will have in the Senate. So your Senate. So to be clear, he's going from the lower house where he's in the seat of Dawson or some bullshit.
Dawson, yep.
Yeah, he's running for a Senate seat. He wasn't
going
previously
to
a
a Senate
senator.
seat,
Yeah.
and there are normally between 3 to 6 senators from each state or territory, and normally half of those will be going for election at any given time. So if he's third on the ticket, if you vote above the line, he's the third preference.
Yeah.
Unless people are voting below the line, like I do, because I'm a psychopath, and you vote upwards and go 1, 2, 3 from the bottom, and everyone does that, then that's probably the only way he would get in.
So it's essentially like he's taking a deal where he's most likely not going to have to return to politics, therefore can spend more time with the family, but also get $100K because he lost an election.
Or to be clear,
by taking the offer to be in the essentially meaningless, unwinnable spot on the ticket.
So
isn't our system grand?
To be clear, the article we were reading is a little bit vague on this, but the actual clause in the resettlement allowance is you could get it by electing not to stand for re-election following loss of party endorsement for reasons other than misconduct, which is not true because he's voluntarily said he was going to retire.
Correct.
The second one is defeat at an election, including defeat at an election where he or she has campaigned to be elected to represent a different electoral division or to the other House of Parliament. So it's that last section of the clause which would entitle him to that benefit.
Yeah, swapping from a member to a senator.
Pauline Hanson's gone, nah, it's not true, and he just
no.
We
don't know anything about the squat toilets.
The squat toilets. But the thing is, for One Nation, they are running the largest ticket, the largest number of candidates that they have ever run at an Australian election. They're going to compete in every single seat in Australia. Which is
presumably the purpose of running him in the seat, though, is to increase their primary vote, right? They get some star power, some shitbag racist star power, and they increase their primary vote.
Remember the scruffy-looking dude who was at all those Canberra marches and is an absolute loon talking about anti-vax crap?
Keep in mind as well, in his seat of Dawson, it is Dawson. I keep thinking
it's Dawson.
He was in by a lot, right? Like he wasn't just scraping in through preference votes. He was very popular.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she's counted. It's a win-win for One Nation because, as you said, they get the star power, and they probably don't have to deal with him.
Well, I
in the
think
background doing anything.
They know that he's going to lose. They know that he appeals to their base. They'll increase their primary vote, which also means they'll get more in terms of government election funding next time around. If you increase your primary vote, the people who vote you first, means that you get a leg up next time around in terms of public funding. So
this is where a preferential system in voting one for someone matters, even if that person doesn't win.
Yeah. So it's kind of very broken that both sides of this are just using this as a cynical ploy to get money out of the system, and there's
it's pretty fucked.
Fucking nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, and it's also just very funny because either he loses as is predicted to based on just the context of being third on the ticket and he gets to spend more time with his family, or he gets elected and then, guess some family you don't like, I guess.
See ya.
You wanted to spend more time with your family and then you're like, actually, no, I don't.
Yeah, well, that'd be the sitcom. That'd be the sitcom, right? It's like he goes up for this unlosable seat in order to make a quick 100K, and then like accidentally wins it, and now he needs to like work with the One Nation people, and it's like awkward situation ensues.
Of course, One Nation are probably, together with the United Australia Party, are probably one of these ones to watch this election in terms of them pulling votes away from the coalition.
Yeah, definitely. And
the fact that they're fielding them, both of those two parties are fielding large fields of candidates this election. It'll be, it's just going to be really interesting to watch.
They're going to gain seats. The loons are going to gain seats, and it's not going to be good.
Potentially in the Senate. In the lower house, it may just mean that the Liberals lose votes, primary votes, which therefore means it actually gives Labor and the Greens an advantage, depending on who's preferencing who. One, in terms of the lower house, in terms of who's putting 1, 2, 3 on the ballot sheet. But for the upper house, I'd imagine they're probably going to pick up some senators. Which will make Labor trying to negotiate with One Nation if that happens. Like, God. Can you imagine?
Okay, we could do a little bit more on on our carbon policy, but what we're going to need you to do is kick out all the Browns, all of the Browns. One Nation.
One Nation under God. It is, it's interesting, and this is again, was it week 1, week 2 of the election? So I'm sure there'll be.
It just started week 2, Adam. It's been a single. I had to double check. I was like, wait, it was last Sunday, right? Was when they called it. It was like, yes, it was. It has been 8 days.
Though it feels like longer.
It feels like so much longer. I guess because we've been shouting, call the election, dickhead, and everyone's been campaigning effectively for so long. Yeah. I don't know how the Americans do it, man.
Well, with their long, primaries
2-year elections, effectively. Fuck.
It's great entertainment, but it's definitely completely fucking exhausting politics.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a good time to start talking about the policies, if we're talking about politics.
We can talk about some policies. So Mark Butler has defended the Labor Party's position to back the existing rate of JobSeeker. So basically what they're saying...
Great.
What they're saying is, we went to bat for this $50 a fortnight increase last year. And we were Labor Party's definitely, helping out hardworking Australians that are doing it tough, but only by $50 a fortnight. And that's it. That's all you deserve. And go fuck yourself. Have you tried going and fucking yourself? Because that's what the Labor Party recommends, is that you go and fuck yourself.
I think they did it very quietly as well. And in the space of like a couple of days, they'd sort of dropped this. By the start of the campaign, they dropped this thing. It was off their website, and Mark Butler was asked about it, and he had to sort of talk around it. So apparently, they're putting more focus on the housing policy they've got, which is, it's also a good policy. But
if you're a person who's living on JobSeeker, doesn't matter how affordable houses become, you're probably not going to buy one on JobSeeker. Like the people who are at the very bottom of the pile, who you should expect an organized labor, a political party that grew out of organized labor, you would expect them to be looking out for those people at the bottom, to just have the just like, oh yeah, like that is going to make us a target and we'll get hit for wasting money on that. So we're just not going to take it to the election. Fuck them. Like that just, it feels like I did the vote compass recently, and I'm more about the same as where I was previously, where it's like a couple of inches to the right of the Greens and like quite a far way to the left from Labor. But like I noticed Labor's position has changed. My position hasn't changed, but Labor's position is much more centrist than it was before. And that's
they were almost
honestly,
smack bang in the middle of the cross of the graph.
Right
there in the middle.
This leftist party that everyone calls a bunch of socialists are like centrists at best. And that's that's the strategy that they're going with at this election, is to make themselves a small target and kind of like, match the Liberals on everything except being a party of corrupt misogynists. And then hopefully Australians will go, oh, fine, it's basically the Liberal Party anyway. I'll just vote for these other ones instead.
I was honestly quite surprised, actually, just speaking of Vote Compass. For those of you who don't know, overseas, we do a thing called our national broadcaster, ABC, does a thing called Vote Compass, where they ask you a bunch of questions and you can say how you feel about them from a strongly agree to a strongly disagree scale, and then it'll calculate those against the policies of the different parties to show where you sit and which party you're most aligned with. And it represents it on a nice graph. And the thing I found very funny, George, was how much sort of higher on the left scale you were on there than, the Scott Morrison can eat my ass egg Nazi candidates bring out the guillotines me. Where I was like, what world is this? Maybe I misunderstood a question.
We were pretty comparable. I think what it is I think I'm just stronger on all my positions than I have been previously. Like there's probably some questions that in the past I would have gone like, agree, or like, I'm not sure. And now I'm just like, yes, everyone deserves a pay increase. Yes, we should be spending more money on tax, on like a carbon tax or some sort of mechanism to fight climate change. Yes, absolutely. Like I'm just much more, I don't want to say like militant. I don't want to give people ideas of, Comrade Sipos over here in his combat boots.
A go bag under his desk. No, wait, I've got my go bag under my desk. Yours is in the cupboard. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
I've got your go bag under my desk as well, just to be safe.
What?
with your little chest of gold, because that'll be the currency.
No, we all know it's going to be bottle caps in the future. So I think I've just been like, I'm much more strident about all of these things. I'm like, no, there are some things where it's like pretty obviously right and wrong. And like, we should obviously be doing more about climate change. We should be obviously doing more about the inequities in our system. We should obviously be, these massive corporations that are recording record profits and taking JobSeeker money from the government, like should obviously be getting taxed more because of course they should. Like, I think I've just gotten a little less, I don't know what the word is exactly, where it's like a little less cautious about my views. I'm like, no, I think that's definitely the right thing to do. Like they were all strongly agrees or strongly disagrees, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, guarantee. I don't think I put anything sort of in middle ground.
I haven't done it yet. I might do it in the coming days, but
Adam's just all the way on the other side. It's like beyond further down the graph. It's like we don't have a graph large enough to represent.
Yeah, there's actually like more lefty, and then there was more conservative, and then there's like neo-Nazi, and Adam's just like blown through the graph. He's just like punctured out the side of the graph.
And we have to evict him from the show.
The job payment was increased last year. So, but it was the first time they did it in decades. So you could argue, well, they've done it. We did it last year and we don't need to do it every year. But it's so far behind the 8 ball at the moment, like in terms of inflation.
I'm sorry, $50 a fortnight is fuck all. Yeah, inflation just like gobbled that up in an instant. Like $50 a fortnight. Yeah. It's $25 a week more. It's just like in real dollar terms, it's actually fucking nothing. Meanwhile, petrol, got over $2 a litre. And, and we're going, oh, but we've got an extra couple of, thanks, Daddy. Please, sir, can I have some more?
Thing that's probably that Labor are trying to wedge on this issue is that, but they're trying to wedge it even though they've backed away from the policy, is that I believe the minister the proposed minister that the coalition, I don't know what you guys are laughing at. The coalition are proposing.
Just the idea that Labor tried to like
that you're wedging someone on an issue that you don't have a policy
that you don't have a strong position on is just like absolutely Labor classic. That's just like 100%. Like pure. You're just like I can imagine a scene where a guy walks in, takes a bit of white powder, and just rubs it on his gums and goes, "Yep, that's pure Labor."
That's just like shoving the revolver in your pants and blowing your nuts off. Like, just stop it.
So, Anne Ruston, this is more to do with Medicare, actually. This is to do with Medicare, so it's a health minister question, not necessarily. I'm getting the two conflated, JobSeeker and Medicare, but basically, Anne Ruston was defending comments that basically the Medicare rate's already too high. So she was trying to.
They froze it for a couple of years just recently. Like, how do you expect people to keep doing more with? Anne Ruston's just a cow. She sucks, man. She sucks, honestly. Okay.
You can say she's terrible.
She said
the Medicare is not sustainable after she's been named as the health minister if they win.
And then people wonder why, and the Liberals go, it's a scare campaign. Labor's Medi-Scare campaign. It was a, bad faith attempt to draw the Liberals as heartless and wanting to cut Medicare. And then Anne Ruston's like, health minister? Yeah, I want to cut the shit out of Medicare. I want to gut that fucking piece of shit. They're like, yeah, these are all completely justified attacks.
So to be clear, Anthony Albanese has been trying to campaign on the last couple of days where he's been sort of pointing out that is, obviously, she said, Anne Ruston wants to take the universal out of universal healthcare. So I got the two, social security things confused. But it's another probably example of.
I don't know, but it's also just that they've previously said how it wasn't even that they were going to increase it, just that. Oh no! If we won an election, we would at least look into reviewing it, and they've backed away from that.
Yeah,
it's like, oh no changes. We're not even going to look if maybe a change is appropriate. We're not even going to do that.
Yeah, we're not going to be better. We're just going to be not worse.
Yeah, we're just going to be the same in this category. This category that people have been calling for, as Adam you mentioned before, decades needing to be risen.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
I would really love
watch more on the Anne Ruston space. I feel like that could become a bit of a combative issue over the next week or two. But
I loved her appearance on Q&A last week, the week before, whatever it was, where a guy from the Muslim community said, what would you say to people who like us? We're religious, we're conservatives, but we don't want to vote for a party that hates Muslims. What would you say to that? Because we want to vote for you, but this is kind of a sticking point for us is that you hate us. And she was just like, we're proud to have stopped the boats. And I was like, shut up, Anne. God damn it, Anne, you suck. Just get this guy. He wants to vote. He doesn't want to vote for Labor. He's asking you to give him permission to vote for you.
Labor have exactly the same policy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But it's just to be asked the question of you've said out in the past that you think we're awful, but we really want to vote for you, and to be like, let me be perfectly clear that we stand by and absolutely admire all the racist shit things that we have done over the years. I could not be clearer. We are incredibly proud of our awful checkered history with treating people who aren't white with absolute contempt and vilification.
Yes.
But you should vote for us because we aren't the other guys.
I just don't know.
You are the guys who are doing all the shit we don't like.
I just don't know about this Albanese. He's such a mysterious, Byronic figure swathed in shadow. Who is he? Where has he come from? From whence has he emerged?
Or if you ask Barnaby Joyce, Anthony Albanese.
Albanese.
He said his last name like Bolognese in an interview, which again, I know we just talked about gotcha things and we should be doing all that, but that was fucking funny.
Albanese, one of those fucking eye ties, coming in here with his Albanese sauce.
Just made me think of Bob Katter when you said that, which makes me wonder, is he going again?
Oh, yes.
Is he running again?
Yes.
I
think he is. I thought he recently said something about all children in schools should get guns.
Yes. Yeah, should get a rifle.
And he said, that's how it was in my day. And I think some fact checkers were like, actually, no.
No, it wasn't, Bob.
Member for Kennedy, and he's going again. I think
he's going again. He's going to go again until, how did he put it? He was like that every boy or girl girls can have guns too.
Or girl.
It was like, look at me, I'm a feminist, give them rifles.
I'm an equal opportunity shithead. I think girls should have access to deadly weapons at a young age as well. Okay, I'm not an idiot.
Yeah, I'm not a fucking idiot. Got to make it fair.
But I'm not wasting any time on it, because every 3 months, a Queenslander gets ripped apart by a crocodile.
And you know what? None of those people would have got ripped apart by crocodiles if they had a fucking gun as a teenager.
For context, if anyone is from overseas and doesn't know who Bob Katter is,
do yourself a favour. Google
him. They know the crocodile clip. that crocodile, like the
went
Thousand
viral.
Blossoms bloom of gay people, but then pivoting hard to crocodiles eating people went international.
His voice
I've seen
is
that pop up
iconic.
on American late night TV.
Yeah,
That
he
is
is.
not just an
is-
Aussie reference.
he is
If
kinda
you're
like a-
imagining like an Australian parody of a rural
Republican.
politician, yeah, like a Republican who's like gone bush. That is Bob Catter. He's out there with the Akubra,
Yeah.
with the leathered skin, with the scowl. He looks about 1,000 years old. He eats children for breakfast, and he wants to give those same children guns to defend themselves with.
It's been a while since he's turned up on like the lawns of Parliament in a Grim Reaper costume, though. I miss those days. I don't even remember why he did that.
Yeah, I don't know.
He did.
You want to
Uh,
retire at one point, but it keeps coming back. Like
I think that might have been around the same time that Pauline Hanson wore a niqab to the floor of Parliament, and then whipped it off in a show of
Yes. The
I don't know
masked
what.
dancer was I, Pauline Hanson.
Oh, it's an even worse surprise than Rudy Giuliani. It's even worse somehow.
Funnily enough, if it was Pauline Hanson, Robin Thicke wouldn't have walked off. What do you know? I don't know that for a fact. Just not authorised by the Commonwealth Government, Canberra. Anywho,
we want to ask Scott Morrison claiming that he saved 40,000 people from dying from COVID.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on
Yeah.
last week's show, and
we
basically
talked
Adam.
about the ad, yeah.
So he said he was in the ad, and you know how Scott Morrison does. He just kind of like slips claims in into things that are completely unverifiable. Well, the conversation, and so they said, thanks to our handling of the pandemic, we saved 40,000 lives against COVID. And then they just like kept moving about how good of a job they'd done on the pandemic. And the conversation has done an analysis as to where that comparison comes from and what it's based on.
How they
And
got to that figure.
we don't need to get into the details, but like the long and short of it is it's wrong. It's incorrect. It's comparing apples to oranges rather than apples to apples. If you compared us with like nations that had similar vaccination rates at that time, it'd be more like comparing us to New Zealand rather than comparing us to Europe. And we've fallen.
Actually, given our isolation as an island compared to all the countries that have borders, you can just like more easily like hop over and
Yeah. So it's like, compared to New Zealand, we didn't do that well at all. If anything, we did much worse than them. So,
dodgy maths.
Dodgy maths. But you'd expect nothing less out of Scott Morrison's dirty whore mouth.
Yeah. Scott, my treasurer found 60 billion hiding behind the couch. Morrison.
Are you
But
by saying
Anthony
that Scott
Albanese
Morrison,
can't be trusted. Okay, it's not going to be easy under Albanese. Okay, you can't be trusted with the economy. Oh, what's that? We found 60 billion behind the couch. Perfect. We've got some submarines that we've been looking to buy, so that works out great. Fucking
just
idiot.
to clarify, for saying that Scott Morrison has a whore mouth, are you implying that his mouth is sold to the highest bidder?
Well, if it were, then I have a podcasting co-host to be very excited to be able to do something with that mouth. So
I was gonna say, like, if he like sells it out to the highest, like, he's selling it out to the highest bidder. Like, I don't know. I'm just asking for it for free. Like, this is just
I wasn't
a
even
mutual
going sexual there.
exchange.
You guys. I was
This is-
looking for some double entendre. Like, I was basically saying that they get donations in, which they're going to
Right,
the highest
no.
bidder.
See,
Anyway,
no, where I went was he can double my entendre if he flies down here with all that free time that he apparently has for such important Father's Day visits while the rest of us were not with our fathers.
tried to dig my way out of that one.
No,
so we
it
don't
has to
get
come back.
sued
My asshole.
for defamation. Nope.
yeah,
Not
no, there's
good.
no double entendres here. Only single entendres, and Scott Morrison can eat our assholes.
I'm no expert, but I don't think it's defamatory for me to say the invitation is open for him to eat my asshole, and he may, should he choose to. That's not defamation.
Or
All I
George
am
implying that
threatening
he would
him
pay
with
for that.
is a good time.
Anyway.
Now I would insist that he sings April Sun in Cuba while he does it, though. Now, is that going to cost extra or?
Maybe it would be incredibly muffled, though. Thank you, George, for that.
Just quickly.
No fucks given anymore. I'm just like, the leash is off. I don't give a fuck. These fucking people need to go. Okay, They've been here for too long. Okay, if you are unhappy with the state of the world, and like, by the way, fucking look around. Okay, if that's not the case, if you're happy with how things are, just look outside the window. Something's probably on fire. But like, if you're unhappy with the state of the world, these pricks have been wheeling and dealing and self-dealing for the last 9 years. So the way everything is at the moment is all their fault. It's Labor's fault because 9 years ago, Anthony Albanese shoveled slightly less money into the defense industrial complex. Like, it's none of it's Labor's fault. Everything that's happening now is 100% owned by the LNP. So if you're happy with how things are, then fantastic. Pull the lever for them. But if you're anyone else who has a brain in their head, I don't see any other option but to turf these bastards out. They are truly the worst.
Yeah, it's very much that anything that was Labor's fault, they have had 9 years to change and have not.
Yes.
So you kind of now have to own that too.
Thank you
anyway,
for coming to my TED
we
Talk.
talk about, speaking of the Liberal Party having to own things, they've very much decided to own their decision to keep a certain person running in the seat of Warringah.
I haven't got a choice now because candidature nominations, I think, are closing.
Now, the seat of Warringah, just to give some context, in the last election in 2019, the seat of Warringah was the seat that belonged to former Prime Minister Tony Abbott. And he famously lost the seat in the last election to an independent.
Sally Steagall.
Yes, to an independent. And so, huge upset. Tony's been gone since, unlike George Christensen, who's now running for a different party. Tony actually left. And, hasn't been missed. Anywho, so it's a seat that they would be very much wanting to get back, right? So, they always talk about seats as whether they are like one to gain or one to retain, all that sort of stuff. So this is definitely a seat that the Liberal Party is keen to gain back, given it was one they held for so long before losing it last election. And the person that they have picked to, they've pre-selected to be running in this seat, Katherine. Now, I've never said her surname out loud. I'm sorry. Deves. All right. Yeah, Katherine Deves. I believe also she was handpicked as part of the controversial, federal captain's calls going on between the process of pre-selection that we talked about in recent weeks.
Yeah, so this is the thing that Conchita Fierravanti-Wells was talking about last week or the week before, where she was saying ScoMo and Alex Hawke came in and made a bunch of captain's picks and kind of subverted democracy ever so slightly by, rather than allowing the normal pre-selection process to happen sort of at the party level, at the branch level, ScoMo and Alex Hawke basically took over the process and appointed their captain's picks. And Katherine Deves is said to be one of those captain's picks. Now, it turns out that Katherine Deves has had a ever so slightly problematic past in that she appeared on a podcast last year by Graham Linehan, Irish podcaster. Basically,
and
sort of
writer of black books in the IT crowd.
Ooh. Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Graham Linehan.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I love those shows.
I love both of those shows.
Yeah, he's not great.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
In much recent time. Yep.
So
sorry I know that's the hardest news you've heard tonight.
That is honestly the most upsetting thing I've heard in a while. I love both of those shows. That's actually very tragic. Anyway, so she was on this podcast, and but kind of likened standing up for her transgender, I don't want to say her because she's not defending transgender rights. I don't want people to get confused. She is an active campaigner against transgender girls in sports.
Yeah, allowing transgender women to compete in women's leagues.
Sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she likened her struggle. Her struggle is probably a good phrase to use there. To Jews and the resistance in Nazi Germany.
Resisting the Nazis. And just a mind-boggling quote. It is. I watched the interview. It's funny because there's only about 7,000 views on this video. You really have to go sort of searching for it. I had to go to the guy's channel and then
find the video, and it's not like very well watched. So I do have to wonder like how many people that are sort of talking about this like haven't actually seen the clip. But yeah, she sounds mostly like a reasonable person throughout the whole thing, and then towards the end, just like that perler comes out, and you go, "Oh boy,
oh wow,
oh boy."
He asked her like, what was the context?
It's
sort of behind it.
It's kind of, they've just spent the whole interview sort of talking about like the situation in Australia, and that Australians are kind of asleep to this whole like transgender takeover. They have a go at Dan Andrews, the other guest on the podcast, Holly Lawford Smith, calls him like a lefty crazy sort of psychopathic kind of regime, and that talking about the gender laws where it's like if you submit your kid to treatment for being transgender, then that could be classed as abuse now based on those new laws. So they go like really in depth into the laws, and they're like, talking about specific clauses, and it just kind of emerges out of that she's this lone battler, sort of, fighting the good fight here in Australia for the Australians that haven't woken up to it yet. And
it's horrific.
It's not good.
It's such self-righteous bullshit.
I just don't understand why these people, if you are not a supporter of like trans rights, why are you so obsessed with it? It is like beyond a fringe of a fringe issue. Like
it makes them uncomfortable.
What do you mean? It's just like they're
like I think it's
they're uncomfortable with trans
idea.
People.
Yeah, they're uncomfortable with trans people.
The
very idea of them, and they're so uncomfortable by it that it's like I can't relax. Like, what you mean? I might just call someone him when I shouldn't have, and then that'll be a big deal. They're like, I'm so uncomfortable all the time, rather than I don't know, educate yourself and just learn.
But this
and
is the thing:
be a prick.
it's not that they're not educated. Both the guests on this panel, like,
sorry, I mean educate yourself.
No, I know what you're saying. But
Yeah.
but it is a point that it's like listening to these people speak, like I think they're wrong about everything that they're saying, but they don't come across to me as like extremists. That's the thing that I found really scary is like, she's like, I got interested around 2016 when these laws were passed, and I've been doing a lot of research. She's a solicitor. Like, obviously she's very well presented. She seems coherent. Like, it's not the idea that you have like a crazy right-wing extremist that's kind of like screaming and throwing poop at the camera or something. Like, she seems like a sensible person who's just like completely wrong about this this issue. But like, the thing that really scared me the most was how she was talking about how she's found like online community around this sort of thing. It's like, I thought I was the only one that was like worried about this, but I've managed to find like lots of women online here in Australia that like share my terrible bigoted views. And now we're all sort of reinforcing our own echo chambers around this whole sort of weird, focus, almost obsessive focus on other people's genitalia that I just never will understand. But like, the fact that there was all of this community around it was what really concerned me.
Yeah. The thing is that the issue they're talking about is, trans women playing in sport, which, there are some points there where you go, well, in terms of balance and fairness, maybe there's a point like you shouldn't have someone who can run twice as fast as other people. But that is something that the individual sport codes can work through in individual cases. There's no need.
Is there a discussion there? Maybe. Is it the most pressing thing? Is it even like a 1%? Is it a 1? I think it's like a 1% of a 1% issue. Like, surely the sporting codes can come up with a way of making, like they do with everything else, ages, weight classes, have some sort of way of making competition fair.
Yeah.
But like, if that's your real concern, but I don't think that. I think it's a false concern. It's concern trolling. I don't think they really are concerned about girls in sport having an even chance. I think it's finding a way to demonize trans people. Like,
to make them harder to exist.
Yes.
That's the end of it.
This fear that somehow, a trans woman's going to kill someone on the footy field. Like,
or the direct comparisons that they were making to like that, but trans women, gender reassignment surgery was like akin to mutilation, genital mutilation, and other things she said about like sexual assault, saying that like a higher proportion of transgender people would sexually assault people in bathrooms. It's just this weird like if you're going to be fixated on anything, why would it be this? Like, it's such a weird, like 1% of 1% issue. But for some reason, when it comes to like genitals and sex and like, you know, girls and vaginas, there's just like a certain contingent of like people out there that are just fucking obsessed with genitals. And like, it's just like, I don't know why you would choose for this to be your one issue that you like.
Your thing.
Your thing. Why is this your thing? It's so weird and obsessive. Like,
yeah, I don't know. And I'd argue as well, just on I think on the sports issue, just generally, I feel I don't think it holds any sort of water at all, because I remember having a discussion with someone a while ago. I think where a trans woman in the AFL. I think it was around whether or not a trans woman would get to play in the
lightning rod.
In the AFLW, the Australian Football Women's League.
Yeah, they were talking about
And I remember the thing that, like having the discussion, like, I mean, I humoured them a bit in talking about like people with different sizes or whatever, but really I got to the point where I was like, you know why I think this isn't an issue? Because if they were both cis women, change everything else. If they were both cis women, but one of them's built like a brick shithouse and the other one isn't, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Yeah, no one would care.
That's why. Like, if you had two cis people who are of vastly different strengths and all that sort of stuff, we wouldn't be having this issue. It'd just be, whoa, look how built they are. What a player.
And that's
That'd be it.
And that's a fair point. But again, this comes back to the thing of like each sport will be different. AFL will be different to swimming, for instance, or track and field.
Look, I don't know. There may be some advantage to being a trans woman. I don't know. Like, I'm not a sports physiologist. I don't know. That is for the codes to work out. Like, experts have like things to say about that, and they should be listened to. Like, not some suburban mum on a podcast. You know what I mean? It's just like, it just seems so out of expertise. You know, like
so this candidate for Warringah's drawn a lot of attention on it, but she's not even like Claire Chandler, who's already in Parliament, who is, I believe,
a Tasmanian senator.
Is she a liberal Tasmanian senator? Or am I just going to make this up? Yep, she's a liberal, an existing liberal Tasmanian senator. She's already put forward a private member's bill dealing with this, basically saying the same thing that
Katherine
Deves is saying.
And it's so funny.
Like,
Claire Chandler's
private members bill, because the Liberals, it was like too extreme for the Liberals. They were like, no, you're crazy, bitch. She's like, I'm going to do it anyway. And she's drawn her own little lightning rod community around this this issue. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how long ago the video was from. How long ago was the video posted? About a year ago. Now, Katherine since come out and apologised, and said, I those comments were disrespectful and all this kind of stuff. But she still holds those views. Do you know what I mean?
It wasn't an accident. Right? She's not confused. Like,
she still holds the views. I think the apology was coming from, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have likened what I do to resisting the Holocaust. I'm still doing the hateful things and views towards trans people. Oh yeah, totally. But I'm sorry I brought the Holocaust into it.
It's not. But you
should be sorry you brought the Holocaust into it.
Like,
but also the other
by
things.
Being on a podcast like this, you're affirming. You are gleefully participating in tearing down trans people. Like, that is the whole. As far as I could tell, watching this podcast, it was the whole point of the show. And like Holly Lawford Smith, the other guest on the podcast, like gleefully dead names Hannah Mounsey, like calling her he. The footballer from the AFLW, the trans woman, Hannah Mounsey, like gleefully says he about her. As though it's like some sort of like, haha, I'm not going to be kowtowed by. It's just like you're volunteering your spare time, and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just really busy between work and doing my master's, but I don't have a lot of spare time. So the spare time that I do have, I got to be doing something I really enjoy. If you're a solicitor, like this Katherine Deves is, and you're running for Parliament, you're pretty busy, I would think. I mean, this is a year before she was running for parliament.
You'd want to hope so.
But you know what I mean? Like, these are busy people, and this is their hobby that they're choosing to spend their valuable time participating in, is like an overseas podcast that's kind of ragging on trans people. It just tells me a lot about who you are and your priorities. And this woman should absolutely, like, she won't get up in Warringah because I think, like, Zali Steagall's really strong and very well liked, campaigning on federal ICAC, campaigning on climate change action, like, very well liked in the community there. But I think the whole point of her candidacy and the reason she was picked by Scott Morrison said, I agree with her. I agree with her ideas. So she's not going to be stood down because it's a bit late for that.
Heck no.
She was appointed by Scott Morrison. And I think the whole purpose of that is to dog whistle to other areas to be like, hey, we also hate trans people too.
Yeah, this is what we stand for.
We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it in a seat that we can actually like win, but we will send up the flare so everyone knows, like, hey, don't worry, we hate the queers just as much as you guys do. Yeah. And here's one to prove it.
I appreciated that the New South Wales Liberal Treasurer at least had enough of a spine to be like, same party as me, sure, like the federal level rather than state and whatever, but she's got to go. What she said is awful.
Yeah,
I'm like, you know what? Yeah, good for him.
There is. I mean, it's the same thing for Labor. Both major parties are the same, but the factionalism within these parties is crazy. Like, and again, like, I keep coming back to this. It just shows the pre-selection process is fundamentally broken in Australia.
Yeah, it's so easily exploited.
Needs to be fixed, and until we fix that, we're going to keep having us sitting here on a podcast going, what the fuck? This is so broken.
Yeah, it's hi there. You're listening to What the Fuck? This is so broken. My name is George.
And you're going to have people saying stupid shit and having weird views.
Yeah. Anyway, so here's Scott Morrison defending Katherine Deves' comments on transgender people, which he would have obviously been fully aware of because she would have just been vetted. Anyway.
As we look at these issues and the debates, which can be sensitive debates, they can be controversial debates, it's always important to show respect for the person sitting across the table from you. We may not always agree, but when we disagree, it's important that we disagree better.
She's the captain's tick and you're the captain. Would any other candidate be disendorsed by you for this, or is it the reason she hasn't been disendorsed because she's running for Warringah?
No, I think I've explained my position very clearly. My position is that there are things that Katherine has said in the past, just like the Labor member for Hunter has said some pretty unfortunate and disrespectful things in the past. I haven't called for him to be disendorsed. I haven't called for others who've said insensitive things, who are even in the parliament, to be disendorsed. What I'm saying is where you're going into public life, which Katherine is seeking to do, a woman, strong woman, standing up for things that she believes in about women and girls in sport, which I know is a very sensitive issue in so many communities, but it has to be done respectfully, out of respect for the human dignity of every individual. And I'm sure they're lessons that she has learned.
Yeah.
Very political.
Jesus Christ. Oh, God, I hate this man.
He's just the worst.
Just makes me sick. Anywho,
just quickly on, I mean, do we have anything else you want to say about that matter before we wrap up with the last story of the day?
Bullshit. Let trans people exist.
Yeah, it should. It's not. I'm sick of the lives of our fellow citizens. You know, whether they be, you know, gay, lesbian, bi, trans, whatever the target du jour is of the Liberal Party. I'm sick of it always being framed as a debate about rights. It's like, oh, it's a debate. It's like, no, these are people's lives and they deserve to live in our society. They exist and they deserve to live unmolested without, without being the subject of national debate as to whether they should exist. Like, that's not, if you are a young trans kid growing up today, hearing this in the media, you would think that there's a good chunk of the country that hates you. And I'm sad to say that
they hates you, think you shouldn't exist.
That you shouldn't exist.
Like, I feel that's another level. Like, yeah, There's being not liked, and there's being like, no, I wish you didn't exist. I wish you weren't a thing.
I don't know why it needs to be this
It's
constant
disgusting.
argument to recognize people's humanity. Like it just seems so devastatingly cruel and completely unnecessary in a modern society that's meant to espouse the values of egalitarianism, to constantly be debating over the citizenship of our fellow citizens just seems like absurd and mean-spirited. That's all.
Finally, today, probably just a quick one to do with candidature. I can't say that word properly, but you know what I mean. West Australian Liberal Ben Small has been forced to resign from the Senate because he is the Senate, not really, after becoming aware he is a dual citizen of New Zealand. Now, we do remember a couple
How
of years ago.
convenient.
Are we about to hear about Section 44 of
Section
the
44.
Constitution?
Section
I haven't
44,
heard those
boys.
words in a while.
You might remember a couple of years ago there was the Section 44 saga, where apparently half of Parliament, where it turns out were
Basically
dual citizens.
the purge. Just suddenly someone remembered, there's a clause in the Constitution you can't be a dual citizen, and like dozens or something of politicians went, oh crap, I forgot, and had to leave.
So WA Liberal Senator Ben Small has resigned of his dual citizenship with New Zealand just in time to turn around and run for the new election, which is that's great.
Oh, right. So he's resigned from the Senate, but he can just run for the Senate again,
Yeah.
like he would have been had he not resigned.
Yeah, so
Yeah, well,
obviously
he
he's
might have had another 3 years or
obviously-
something, but, yeah.
Obviously, he's known about this for some time, and he's gone, great, an election's been called, fantastic, I can resign, I just learned about this, I can turn around and run for my old job, no interruptions. Obviously, like patently, obviously the case that that's what's happened.
Which got me starting to think about
Amazing.
and this is what I want to keep track of this election, is how many candidates get scratched or have to resign or whatever else. It's a little bit different, but since the 26th of February, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people that have had to vacate their candidature. I can't say that word properly, but a couple from United Australia Party, because turns out they didn't like, or they really like Putin, as it turns out. Some other people...
Again, what is it with these like 1% issues that people are willing to die on a hill for? Like, defending Putin must literally be like the most unpopular political position that one could possibly take. And as an aspiring politician, you should know that you should only go for like 60%ers. Like, just be like, I don't know, this Putin, I think every single person on the globe might be wrong about this. I reckon this Vladimir Putin's in the right. Like, how absurd.
The Labor candidate for Hughes had withdrawn his candidacy because of Section 44. Arguably, if you are going to do it, now is the time,
Right.
To withdraw your candidacy. But it'll be interesting because, as I said earlier in the show, the nominations are now sort of closing up. So it'll be interesting to see how many of them get scratched after. And what that means is the parties won't be able to refill those seats. So rather than having someone in that particular seat, you'll just have to like forfeit that, that chance to win a seat. And
I do think
a lot
it
of
is
them.
interesting that that Labor candidate that you're referring to there, Peter Tsambalas, withdrew his candidacy over concerns around his citizenship of Greece. If you've got a surname like Tsipos or a surname like Tsambalas, I think that might be something you would check. Surely you would think to check that before you start running for a seat. Like, I would think, I've got a really Greek name. I might want to check and see if I'm on the book somewhere, if Greece has got me on the books. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's the sort of thing that you just do a quick Google. Just a quick Google it, see where I'm at.
So you guys might remember the big thing that the UAP put out, where they had every single candidate and their numbers. So 4 of them have now dropped out.
Nice.
4 of them are gone.
Awesome. I did see a candidate. I think I shared it. I think I shared it with you guys. One of my mates from work shared me a like a mail like letter drop in that one of the UAP candidates had put in, and they shared their mobile number, and I'm like, do I do anything with that? Like, surely as a person who's got a comedy podcast about
mobile
the
number,
news.
surely it'll be like one that forwards to like having a work phone. Surely they can't be that.
Okay, but I think you would genuinely be getting through to a real person, right?
Oh, eventually, yeah.
And I don't think it's a staffer because they're very thin on the ground as of yet. So I think you'd be getting a candidate sometimes with these numbers.
Oh, yeah,
see how long you could agree to a bunch of bullshit to get in their ear and then just go, "You're a piece of shit." Hang up.
When the ABC called a lot of them, they
there was some
the ones they could
numbers.
get through to, they referred them straight to the comms advisor for the party. They're like, "Yeah, we'll talk to you, but go through this guy first."
But like, what if it's if you're giving your phone number out to the public, and the public calls you, like, isn't that what you're trying to elicit? Is like, hey, I'm a candidate for office. I want to speak with my potential constituents. And I was just thinking I might call them up and agree with whatever racist vitriol. I just want to see how deep it goes. Like, I just want to know what their views are. And just agree. Just do a bit of yes-anding and see how many layers deep we get in before they pull the plug. I'm curious. Aren't you curious?
I'd just give all their numbers to all their, it's probably already out there now. Give all their numbers to the cold callers and energy companies that want to give them a sweet deal, save on their energy. They can answer all those calls.
Yeah,
day after day,
lots of missed connections ads that they'll be responding to in the in the newspaper.
Good. So that was this week in Australia's election
Week 1.
campaign.
1 week down, 5 more to go.
Fucking hell.
Meanwhile, the rest of the world continues to be terrible. But, the right wing in France may get up. Ukraine war still goes ahead. Biden's losing his mind. It's all good.
Yeah, when is that French election? I'd like to do a thing on Marine Le Pen at some point.
Soon. Very soon.
Okay.
Silence while we check this.
It starts on the 10th of April and ends on the 24th of April. I guess because they've got the initial election and then they've got the runoff.
So I don't know.
So the way that it works in France is like there's a bunch of candidates from all the different parties. This is just from memory. I'm assuming this is still correct. A bunch of different candidates, and then the top 2 ranking candidates of those, 12 parties, then go into a runoff like 1v1 me bro election. And so that's the runoff. So that's the danger, is that a lot of these hyper conservatives
basically
could
Australian Idol.
It's Australian Idol. Text Marine Le Pen too. So the concern is that a lot of like hyper conservatives could sort of bunch up under Marine Le Pen, and that might be enough people to sort of knock Macron off the top job. So and Marine Le Pen and her hyper conservative shitbag parties that are to the right of her are genuinely terrible in new and many manifold ways. So might be something for another show before the 24th, which is in 6 days. So it's not going to happen. Thanks for listening, guys.
After the fact.
After all that, thanks for listening. Love your faces. We'll see you next week. Hopefully Marine Le Pen doesn't win.